Microdose, yeah. Microdose. Microdose. Microdose, dose. Microdose. Microdose, dose. Microdose. Microdose, dose.
What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, coming to you. Woo! Brand new edition of the Microdose. I know you guys are saying, like, Kush, where you been? What happened? Are you okay? Did you fall off a cliff? Did you fall off the edge of the earth? No, no, and no. We're doing okay. We needed a little breather, a little mental health day. I wish we could blame it on the NBA Finals. That would have been very exciting. But I feel like if we're a part of us this year, we would have made it through. Anyway, don't worry about me. We're here now. That's what's important. And what's even more important is I got a guest. He's had a couple podcasts, including Supernatural San Francisco and My Personal Paranormal. He is a part of the SF Ghost Society and the owner of the Haunted Hate Walking Tour. His name is Tommy Netzband. Tommy, what's good, man? Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm, glad to be here. Definitely. Here to answer all your paranormal questions.
Right on, man. Right on. I'm usually, as you noticed, I'm a little out of practice here, so I'm usually better about these intros. Tommy, you're not an exorcist or anything, but you are a paranormal investigator part-time?
Yes, I am a paranormal investigator. I've been doing it over 20 years, focusing primarily here in San Francisco and the Bay Area, but I definitely have investigated in other parts of the country and world as well. We are a free service, San Francisco Ghost Society. I founded it back in 2005. It's interesting how I sort of got into this. I've always been a ghost historian. That's really where my love and my passion for the paranormal has always come. It has come in giving me a ghost story, and then I'm finding the history of those stories. The ghost stories that you hear on the Haunted Hate are all original stories that I have investigated, invested in, and helped. And I tease a lot. I tell people, most people don't need a ghost hunter, they need a plumber, right? Because it's very easy to disprove a lot of this stuff, but that 10% is truly what we live for. So you call us, we come out, we definitely help you as far as understanding if it is paranormal or if it isn't, and then gathering evidence of that paranormal activity, and then, of course, giving it to you. We do a lot of confidential cases, too. I mean, not all my cases are even on the Haunted Hate Walking Tour because some people really just want it done confidentially. So we definitely do that as well, so that's sort of, what we do. I've been doing it over 20 years here. So I've helped a lot of people. I've had many, many cases of the paranormal, and 90% of them, you can prove that it's not paranormal.
Okay. You've been doing this over 2 decades now. You're an investigator, you're a historian, you're an archivist, but like what put you in that direction? Was there a specific incident, or have you just always been curious? There was a specific movie? Like, how did you get into this?
Well, it really started when I was really young. I had a near-death experience, and that's what really got me on the road to this. And you'll find that most people who are in this sort of crazy business that we're in often have had experiences. And in my case, I was about 6 years old, 5 years old, and I drowned in the bathtub. My sister left me unattended in the bathtub. I remember being very sleepy. And then the next thing I remember, I was on the ceiling looking down at my body. And I was very confused. I remember not being afraid, but I was confused. Like, why am I up here and why am I down there? And then I could see my sister's head because I'm on the ceiling. And she sort of, comes into the bathroom and pulls me out of the water. And then I was back in my body. And then ever since then, I was obsessed as a child of ghosts and the paranormal and anything esoteric. I had just such a tremendous interest in anything that was esoteric or paranormal. And, for years, I would just sort of do my own research. And then when I moved here to San Francisco in 1996, I, of course, knew all these ghost stories. I had heard ghost stories through friends, family, neighbors, things like that. And then I started to kind of look up the histories of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started looking at the histories, I was like, wow, I really would like to get a paranormal team to help me investigate these tales, And I started looking around, and 20 years ago, or this probably like, yeah, 18, 19 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
there were no paranormal groups in San Francisco. There were
No.
none. Like, there were a couple in the East Bay, maybe a couple down south San Jose, but nothing
Okay.
in the city and county of San Francisco. So this little light bulb went off and said, you know what? I think I can bring together like-minded people that can help me with this. And that is what we did. We went ahead and I developed San Francisco Ghost Society, and the tour just sort of fit naturally with what we were doing because this is a very expensive passion. It costs a lot of money. I mean, we talked a little bit about, when you came on the tour and even after about how expensive this stuff is and how
Mm-hmm.
sought after it is. And, you end up with a lot of money and equipment. And if you want to review evidence, that's 8 hours of video takes 8 hours of review. That's
Right.
plus pizza, plus Red Bulls, plus everything else, what you need for your team, right?
The bare
So
necessities, of course.
yeah, the bare necessities, right? So you just sort of add all that up and it starts to get quite expensive. And,
Right.
we were using our own money. We all had full-time jobs. And we, I started doing the tour as a means of helping to fund this sort of paranormal activity that was going on that people needed help with. And that is how I got to be. And then I met a woman when I first opened. Her name was Sharon Leong, and she was an artist, a wonderful artist, and a ghost hunter. And she had all the equipment. She knew everything about it. And, I sort of went with her teaching her history stuff, and then she taught me all the equipment. She's a great mentor to me. She passed away, unfortunately, of cancer
Oh, God
not
damn.
too long ago, a couple of years ago. So,
I'm sorry.
thank you. I mean, she's still in our heart, and we just think of her all the time. But she definitely was really cutting edge. In fact, she appeared in an article with CNET about technology and ghost hunting for us as San Francisco Ghost Society. She was a wonderful woman. And that is really how I kind of got into the electronic end of this, because I still think the best way to prove a ghost story is historically.
Okay.
You have instances where things happen. Maybe you talk to several people that have lived in a building, but they don't know each other, and they lived in 10 years ago, another one lived 15 years ago, and they're telling you the same story. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you discover the history behind that haunting, that to me is the best proof.
Mm-hmm.
All this equipment is great and wonderful, and people use psychics and mediums, but we really focus on three things at the San Francisco Ghost Society, and one is audio evidence, video evidence, and historical evidence. Those are the three things that we really focus on. So when you start bringing psychics in and things like that, it's just too easy to disprove those things. If I'm going to give you evidence or show you equipment or show you something, I want to make sure that you understand it, you're doing it properly, and you understand that you're not always going to get something paranormal. It does not work. There are no Scooby snacks for the ghosts,
Right.
and that is how it is. I mean, I know when you came on my tour, we had some good stuff. Some tours, nothing. Other tours,
Really?
booming with activity. It just depends. I mean, every day is, though I'm telling the same tales and bringing it to the same locations, each time I go there, it's a different experience.
Okay. I want to get a little bit more into the tour because I actually have some specific questions about the tour, not just what we talked about yesterday, but like there's a couple of the details. I was like, oh, this thing's going crazy here. But then I was like, it's wet and we're under a transformer. Anyway, you said most of the times you go on these investigations and it's literally just nothing. Like it's just some pipes banging. You need a plumber. You need a plumber in this case. But like, how many cases did you go on before you found something like, oh shit, they got something here? Like
Less than 10%, 10% or less of the cases, you actually do find something. In most
okay.
cases, I think probably the biggest thing that people need to be aware of in
Hmm.
the paranormal, I can save you a lot of time and energy to any of your, folks that listen to this podcast or want to know about this. There's something in the paranormal. We call it a fear cave. And in today's world, we all have a very big fear cage because TVs, electronics, they emit electromagnetic fields, as you know. Your
Right.
telephone, your refrigerator, your stove, your clocks, your tablets. So we in today's society are bombarded with electromagnetic fields. All right.
Hmm.
In my own house right now, I could bring out an electromagnetic field reader and it's going to be high because I'm like about 4 feet from my television.
Hmm.
And we live in this world with a lot of electromagnetic fields, and some people are sensitive to these fields, um,
Hmm.
some more than others. And, it's been proven like it actually changes your brain waves. Your brain waves change when you're bombarded with these EMF fields, and it makes you feel paranoid. The hair on the back of your neck stands up. You feel
Oh,
as if you're being watched. I
hmm.
talk to a lot of people. I tell them, you ever been in the office late at night and you're typing away, the phone's going, maybe the computer's going, you printing something, your phone's on, and you suddenly get that creepy feeling like, oh shoot, man, somebody's in this office or something. Well, you're
Hmm.
probably being bombarded with electromagnetic fields. Okay.
Hmm.
And there's a simple instrument. It costs about $20 on eBay called an electromagnetic field reader. I gave you guys some of them
That's
on the
right.
tour, and you can easily detect if high EMF fields are happening. And then once you eliminate those fields, it goes away. I've had many cases where this has happened. I had a great case, a gentleman, he was a bachelor, he lived alone, and he kept waking up with these creepy feelings like somebody was watching him at the edge of his bed. And I
Hmm.
went to his house and I noticed that he had like a 1990 digital alarm clock. Remember those big boxy alarm clocks we used to have back
Yes, I
then?
do. Oh, with the
Yes,
wood paneling.
yes, you got it. It's exactly what he had. As soon as I did a reading on it, the EMFs were off the chart. It was spewing EMFs, and he sat or he was in his bed laying at night right next to it. So I told
Mm.
him, I said, look, get rid of this, and I think it'll go away. And he
Mhm.
did, and it went away. So um, a lot of these cases, people say you waste all this time, this energy, this money. You go out and you go, oh, you need a plumber, oh, you need an electrician, oh, does it bother me? And the answer is absolutely not. I help people sleep at night.
Yeah, thank you.
That is something I do. And it's okay if, and you don't have to be embarrassed, but I think too many people jump to the paranormal.
Yes.
Everything is paranormal. If you think everything's a ghost, then everything's a ghost.
Mhm.
It's those interesting things that devices saying words that it's not usually saying, using two words if the device is only going to say one word. These are things, or like using an EMF reader and having them reply to you on command, saying flash twice to say hello, and it flashes twice. Now flash once, and it'll flash once. Where you're interacting with what they call an intelligent spirit. That is really what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of people can save a lot of time and energy by buying one of these $20 electromagnetic field readers.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about the EMF reader in a minute here. Has there been a case that you went on that was it's a legit case? Like, nope, nope, it's not the gas main and it's not the electricity. There's something in here, but then it went away super easy. Just like, all right, Frank, time to go, and then it went away, and they were never bothered again. Like, have you had any cases like that?
Well, definitely have had cases where I've experienced the paranormal.
Yes.
Um, yes. As far as getting rid of ghosts, that's really not my job. I
Okay.
do not rid houses of ghosts. I
Okay.
can help you. I often tell people you need to turn to your faith. There's such a diversity of faith here in the Bay Area
Okay,
that
okay.
you can't just assume somebody's Catholic, somebody's Protestant, somebody's Muslim, somebody's, Buddhist. So
Hmm.
it's really a matter of going to your faith. I mean, I may direct you in some directions,
Hmm.
giving you advice on who you can approach. But as far as ridding your house of ghosts, that's not really what I do. I
Gotcha.
document the ghosts. I'm more there to document them, to say, okay, you're not crazy. You're not imagining things. This is not a plumber. This is something unusual. And yeah, I've had many of those cases, that I've dealt with, and even some very big commercial cases,
Hmm.
with like famous hotels like the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, where Stephen King wrote The Shining.
Hmm.
Very haunted hotel. I mean,
Oh.
got all kinds of great stuff there. And Alcatraz, I did a TV show on Alcatraz about 10 years ago called
Hmm.
Mystery Quest. And that was amazing, having that whole island to ourselves, just
Hmm.
four of us ghost hunters, and getting some amazing evidence for them. Where the show even took our like EVP evidence and had it analyzed by a CIA expert, audio expert, and he
Hmm.
himself said, on the wave domain of the actual recordings, that sort of wave that goes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when the voice said what it said, which was, we asked how many spirits are in the hospital, and the EVP answered 50, just about. And he analyzed the audio and said that you'll hear us say, how many spirits are in the hospital? And then the wave domain goes way up above the human ear.
Hmm.
That there's no way that the human voice, excuse me, not the ear, but the voice, there's no way that the human voice could have made that sound. He was still skeptical. He's like, I'm
Sure.
skeptical still. I want to believe there's other worlds. But of
Hmm.
course, he's from the CIA. He's not going to say there's ghosts. Even the government workers on Alcatraz are said to tell you there are no ghosts on Alcatraz. The
Hmm.
government does not like to discuss it. They don't want to have that reputation. But if you pay them $10,000, like the History Channel did, sure, come on in. You can hunt all the ghosts you want. And we were lucky enough to be approached by the History Channel to do this show. And
Hmm.
we did, and we got phenomenal evidence for that.
Alcatraz is a special kind of fucked up too. There's so much negative energy on there. And again, I consider myself a skeptic. I don't know what I believe in. I don't know what I don't believe in. Like I've never had a necessarily paranormal experience that at least I know of. Um, Me and a girlfriend went to Alcatraz about 13 years ago, and like they took us around, they took us up Broadway. And then they're like, "Here, if you want to go into a solitary cell, here," and like an idiot, we walked into a box and they closed the door and it's like, "Boy, I do not like this," and they thankfully let us out immediately, so we didn't have to stay in there. But we got to the hospital, and it's not a big hospital. Like I just we saw a room could hold two beds. It's got olive green linoleum tiles all over the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of us could walk in the room because we're just like, no, there's something not good in here. Um, and again, like, so having you just say all that, like 50 fucking ghosts in there. I believe it.
Well, that is what they said. I mean, the spirits of 50, just about. And, here's the thing. I mean, I think that it's good to be skeptical. I tend to try to go into cases skeptical. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a good attitude, because you don't want to be overly excited thinking everything's a ghost,
No.
because if you start giving evidence that's just not up to par, there goes your
Mm-hmm.
reputation.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things that I really feel like we strive to do is give good evidence and give good history. I mean, when I'm on the tour, I'm showing you these articles, I'm showing you these murders, I'm showing, I'm backing, I've got the receipts,
Mm-hmm.
and that is very important in the paranormal. I am not here to just tell someone a ghost story. I am here to tell them, the real history of something, because history and ghosts, they go hand in hand. And when you look at ghosts and you look at history, could it be that maybe we're not dealing with dead people, but layers of time that are just in the same um, area, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe unseen by us because of this physical body? Maybe when we shed this physical body, our consciousness lives on. Maybe we go to the fourth dimension which is time, which we would be able to go back and forward in time, or see time as this, as, as everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
over the years, we've really changed our thoughts about, are ghosts dead people? Are they people that have a vendetta? Are they people that can't move on?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just on another dimension? And every now and then we see them because, all of everything is existing at once. Every possibility is existing at once. So if there is a multiverse per se, are we dealing with multiverses? I don't know. So it's really brought new questions to the paranormal, and less of that Hollywood feeling of, oh, it's a vengeful spirit, like, the movie Ghost.
Sure.
It's really multidimensional, and it really has a lot to do with quantum physics more than, oh, it's a dead person's vengeance. I mean, these are questions that go through my mind constantly. I'm always sort of analyzing, what did I see? What did I experience? Is this a spirit? Is it a dimensional being? Is it an alien? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 years in this, and I still have questions.
I clearly misunderstood earlier when I asked, like, anyway, you just track the ghost, you document it. Do you recommend someone to help the client get rid of
Yes.
the spook or specter? And how much does religion play into this? Like, if you, I mean, I've gone, like, I was in this Jewish house and this specific thing happened, but I was also in this Hindu house and this specific thing happened, or like just any fill in the blank.
Well, I think that faith plays a big role in
Okay.
anything because of the tremendous power of
Mm-hmm.
faith. May it be whether you believe or don't believe in a faith, if somebody has such a belief in that faith, it can transform things. It can protect them. It can bring in that symbolism you need. I have an agreement with the spirits. They know when I'm home, do not bother me. And every now and then they try. I might have, my phone might go bad, or the TV will turn on itself, or something like that. But I'm very firm with the spirit world that I am off duty. I'm not talking to you right now. And I think that people, the number one thing that people need is control. And sometimes religion can help you with that control, because you feel like you're giving it up to something higher, then you feel less hopeless. So yeah, religion can play uh, a big part in this, but it depends on your faith and how religious you are. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I did a possession case once, where I've never done a possession case. They're very rare in the paranormal community. We do, you see it on TV, The Exorcist, all that,
Mm-hmm.
movies, but they're very rare, real ones anyway, that aren't
Right.
hysteria or whatever. And I had a gentleman, he lived in the city, and I'll keep him confidential because he wanted that.
Understood.
Um, and he came to me and he was like, look, I'm having, dark shadows in my house. I'm waking up with bite marks, which I was able to, look at. And, of course, I went in skeptical. I thought, oh, come on, he's probably biting himself. Or maybe he's just, has some mental illness. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Let's bring it in. And then I brought it in, the team, we got evidence. We actually, a lot of times we take pictures in what's called burst mode. I'm sure you may have heard of that. It's like a
Okay. Yeah.
sports
Yeah.
mode. You take
Yeah.
those
Yes.
many pictures because shadow people, yeah, you got it. Yeah. Shadow people move very fast. Any type of dark shadows, things like that, they're not seen very easily with the eye because they move very fast. So often when we're doing our um, investigation, we'll do a lot of burst mode cameras. And we actually caught the dark shadow. Like one frame, it's not there. then you see the mass, then it's gone. So you have all these control shots too. So we knew that, yes, there was a dark shadow in there, okay, and then got some good EVPs. And, I still was like, I couldn't understand why this was happening to him. And then he confessed to me that he was studying black magic. And he was doing he was doing what's called calling corners. And I don't know if you know anything about witchcraft or I do because of my line of work. Not that I practice it, right? But there's something called calling corners. Aleister Crowley, I know you've heard of this guy. He was the black magician from England. Ozzy Osbourne did a song about him, Mr. Crowley, and he was known as the Beast 666. Okay, and he was a dark magician who did a lot of sexual magic, and he did something called calling corners. And in calling corners, you're basically conjuring spirits or demons or whatever you want to call that. Okay, so this guy did some calling corner rituals, and I was like, why didn't you tell me that? And weird shit would happen with this guy. He would call me on the phone, and I couldn't talk to him on the phone. It would be like static, and it would never let me speak to him on the phone. So when meeting him in person, I said to him, you got to come clean with me. What is going on? So he came clean. He said, look, I practice these rituals. I shouldn't have done it. I said, look, I'm going to bring a witch in here. Okay. Witchcraft got you into this. Maybe a witch can get you out. I know a great, practicing Wiccan that may be able to come in here and help you. And I got the witch. I brought her in, and 5 minutes in the house, she was like, I got to get out of here. I don't even want to be in this house. There's something very evil in this house. I do not want to be here. And she left. And I was like, oh my God, like that never happened to me before, with anybody.
Worst case scenario, sure.
Yeah, worst case scenario. So I said to the guy, you're going to have to turn to your faith. Do you have any faith? Are you a witch? He's like, no. I was a Muslim, I'm sorry. I was a Catholic, but I turned Muslim. I said, well, then you need to turn to your Muslim faith. You need to go to your mosque and talk to them about this. You may be dealing with what they say in the Islamic religion, a jinn. You could be dealing with a jinn. And so that was as far as I could go with the guy. There was nothing else I could do. So yes, will I try to help you? Yes. Will I do what I can do to help you? Yes. Am I always successful? No. And in this case, this gentleman, we lost touch after a while. I don't even know if he continued to have the spirit or not. But what went from a ghost turned into a spirit or a jinn, and something, that I very rarely experience. I mean, you don't get these cases often. Someday when I write a book, I will definitely include this case with the pictures of all the evidence that we got from this case. So yeah, that would be the best way of how I would approach something. And I have helped others with getting them a priest. I used to work with this ministry that dealt with demonology. They were called like M80 Ministries, and they really were into like demonic cases. But they were very more like, I don't want to say fundamental, but maybe Pentecostal or something like that. So it has to be a very good fit. I can't give you, if you're Catholic, bring in a Pentecostal minister. If you're say Hindu, I'm not going to bring in a rabbi. Definitely it has to be in tune with the person. But I don't think it's the priest or the holy figure that does it. It's the person. It's the faith. It's the control. You have to learn to control the spirit world. It will try to mess with you any way it can. So I have an agreement with the spirit world. I've had psychics in my house say, there's nothing in this house. And I say, that's the way I like it. Because I'm off duty. I'm not interested. But when you do this line of work, you're a beacon. They come to you. They want all these spirits or whatever you want to call them have a message. They want to tell you this message, and they know like this is a guy that'll tell me my message. So they, are now, what, like psychic mediums, the real ones. I've only met a few real ones, not very many, but
are you yourself a medium, or just like
no, I'm an extra large. I'm an extra large. I'm not a medium.
Oh,
no, I'm not a medium. I've never claimed to be a medium.
but it does sound like you've got some extra sensory about you.
Yeah, I do, because I've been doing this a long time. It's almost like a muscle, like a weightlifter.
Oh, okay.
You keep using that muscle, and then next thing you know, you're strong. So yes, I can go in a place and usually tell if it's haunted, not haunted. I'm usually right. I can just tell. I mean, yes, I have developed per se a extra perception, if you want to call it that. But anybody can develop this. It's not something that is special to, anyone can develop a psychic ability. We all have it. It's just most of us deny it. And sometimes it's as easy as just going with your hunch. I walk in a house, say, yeah, I feel a woman. I feel this, I feel that. And then I'll sit down and then talk to the client, and they'll be like, yeah, there's a woman, there's this, there's that. So it just validates, I usually go in and just do a walkthrough and just, a lot of times I used to bring a psychic with me. I have one that I work with. If you ever want her on your show, I'll hook you up. She's great.
I'd be happy to talk with her, please.
Yeah, her name is Annalisa Bastiani. She's done a lot of cases. Her father used to be a police officer here in San Francisco. She works with me. And I tend to piss psychics off because I test them and they don't like it. Some don't like to be tested. But Annalisa's really good at that. I brought her to a haunted location once and said, what do you feel? Tell me everything. She did. It was 100% accurate. I was like, yep, you got it. And, some psychics don't like to do that. And to me, it makes me skeptical of them.
Sure.
So, but anyway, yeah, I do like to bring a psychic in, and they'll do a walkthrough, tell me their impressions, and then I compare it to what the client has said. Sit down with the client, talk to them, and then once I have that and we accept a case, then I'll bring in all the equipment and we'll bring in everybody and see if we can find you a plumber, find you an electrician, because that's usually what it ends up being, but those cases that are not end up either on the tour or, my lecturing, I lecture or talk about them on podcasts or whatever, so I've never got in this business to prove it to the world or be a celebrity. I never did it for that. I've always just, when the first meeting of the San Francisco Ghost Society, I have to tell you, I said to everybody, we need to decide right now, are we here to prove this to the world, or are we here to prove this to ourselves? And, the consensus was, we want to prove this to ourselves first, and then the rest of the world second. And, that is really my focus. I mean, I don't need a skeptic to tell me I don't believe it. I've discussed with you how I feel this is somewhat like a religion.
Yeah.
And
I get it.
Either believe it or you don't. And I just tend to be a believer, and I can show you all the weeping statues, all the miracles, everything that may happen. But if you're not a believer, you're just not a believer, So I've given up on trying to prove this to the world. And it's more about my own personal experiences with the paranormal. And I can tell you personally, I do believe in a spirit world. There is something beyond this physical reality that we are not aware. What it is, I don't know. But is there something? Absolutely. There's something beyond this, what we cannot see.
We're going to get into your tour in a little second here, but one more question. Are spirits or entities territorial, or like have you found a spirit in location A and then a mile away he's also in location B? Like, Dave, what the hell are you doing here, man? Why you two people? You got to bother two people? You can't just bother one person? Like, has that ever been a thing, or are they just like, we're locked in this location here?
Well, I mean, it's funny. Just this weekend, I did a ghost hunt with some of my fellow ghost hunters. We went to the St. Francis Hotel, the St.
Oh, I'm
Francis
familiar with
downtown.
it.
Yeah, Fatty Arbuckle and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
Lots of murders, lots of suicides over the years. So I rented a couple of the rooms and we had a good night. We ended up being more of a social hour than anything because we hadn't seen each other in a long time. But
Yeah, man,
the pandemic and all that. But
I get it.
one of the things that was interesting is we were sort of having this discussion of, do ghosts follow you? Can you go to a location and then 2 miles later he's with you and follow you? And most of our general consensus was the ghosts don't want to follow you. Are they territorial? Yes. If your happy space in life was, say, this particular home, that's your happy space. That's where you want to
Hmm.
be, or your timeline is looping
Hmm.
in that home. Why would it change? Why would you go to
Hmm.
someone else? I mean,
Well,
that's
I'm not
not
talking about
just,
anything following you per se. I'm talking about like, have you ever gone to a friend's house and there's a secondary person that you, oh, hey, I know that guy. Hey, Dave, how you doing? And then you go to another friend's house and you know Dave also. This is amazing. Like, no, they're not following you. They just happen to be fucking with two people at the same time.
oh, I wouldn't say that I've ever had a case like that.
Okay.
Where one ghost has fucked with two people at the same time. I mean, I've definitely had people who've had experiences in the same location,
Okay.
but not really as much where they're messing with people at the same time. Nah, I wouldn't say, at least me. I mean, I'm not saying that's probably never happened, but
Mhm.
I definitely never had a case like that.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos on the paranormal, and again, I'm skeptical, so it's always easy. Like, oh, there's a string. Someone's behind the cameraman pushing that guy. That's not a demon, stupid. You broke into a morgue at 3 in the morning, and there's a homeless guy sleeping there. All right, like there's a lot of things, but then there's stuff I can't explain, and blah 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 blah. Um, I started watching a bunch of those videos, and then I was like, I would like to talk to one of them, but I would also like to see if there's something in San Francisco here where I can go on a little tour. And that's when I found it, hauntedhate.com. And we booked a tour. It's less than $25 a ticket. And you took us on, it's roughly less than 2 hours. We went to a park. We went to Jim Jones's house. I did not know the man lived here. That was quite fascinating. Um, he introduced us to some tools of the trade. There's the Ovilus 3. We might get into that in a little minute here. But then you mentioned it's not the EPK meter, it's
EMF reader?
the EMF reader. Thank you. And when I stood next to that trio of dudes, it went off because one of them had a phone in their hand. I put it next to my phone, the thing goes crazy. But most of the time it stays pretty docile. You took us to Charlie Manson's garage, and when we hit the corner of the block, the thing started going nuts. Like literally, it's going off the charts. It's being very violent, in fact. But I was like skeptic to them. I'm like, it's heavy mist. There's a transformer right there. That's what it has to be. Or maybe it's next to my phone, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You talked about Charlie Manson's house, but then we went a block and a half down the road to what's her name's Janis Joplin's apartment, where a teenager got murdered, and again, still wet. There's a transformer right there. Nothing's happening with the MF reader. What is you say? Not every tour is the same, but what was happening on Charlie Manson's corner?
Well, the Charles Manson corner. Um, there are other hauntings on that street. Things
Yeah, I
that
can imagine.
some
It's a Haight
I've done a
Ashbury.
couple. I've done a couple confidential cases on that street too. It has a lot of
Mm.
vibe. It has a weird vibe to it. As far as your skepticism of transformers, phones, all of it, 100% correctly. And as you know, I mentioned that to people like, hey,
Hmm.
anything makes these things goes off, your
Yeah, yeah,
phones
yeah.
or this or that, turn that stuff off, if you want to. But one of the things that they really believed, the hippies anyway, back in the day in 67, was that the Haight Ashbury itself, they believed it was this sort of psychic portal, psychic, ley line energy. They had this really trippy thing about how it was, everybody was drawn there because of the psychic vibe of the hate and the strangeness of it and all of that. I mean, is it the land itself that could be given that weird vibe and creating ghosts? Some of the theories are that places with limestone, sandstone, quartz are recording minerals, and somehow they are able to sort of heighten the energy of an area, and maybe that's what you could be experiencing there. I mean, it's one of the great mysteries of, why would one area be active and one area not be active, or why would a transformer in one area be easily detected and then not in another area? Each area is unique in its own way. And even when I do this on the tour with you guys, I mean, this is really just a fun way to show you guys this stuff. I mean, in a real case, we would baseline everything. I would know exactly where my energy is coming from and avoid those areas. The number one thing I do with that K2 meter or the EMF reader, is to go around the whole area and see, is there energy anywhere in this area that could be from another source, like a transformer, like because there's lighting electrical under the ground in front of you in some of these places, because
Gotcha,
electricity, so there's a lot of ways to get this energy. So it's important to sort of understand your baseline first of where the energy points you want to avoid. And one of the things that and you may have noticed it on the tour, is I'm getting it to want to interact with you. I want it to interact. I want it to flash twice. Then you'll see I'll say flash once, flash 3 times. I want it to interact. That is better evidence than just it flashing randomly out. Just because there's a flash doesn't mean it's a ghost. Can you get that ghost to interact with you? That is what you want to do. You want to say, okay, if there's a spirit here, flash this 3 times. And then if it flashes 3 times, you'd say, okay, if you're a male, flash once. And then it'll flash once. And see, it's interacting with you. That is what we want with the intelligence. That's what all these tools that we use for are, to get the ghost to easily interact with you. And for some reason, that cheapy little EMF reader is one of the best things to use. They love that cheapy little, I'm so glad it's not a $500 EMF reader, because they run really high too. It's a cheapy one, and the ghosts like it. And we don't know why, but they like this particular K2 meter, that very specific one that I gave you. So we have to determine, is it just electricity? Is it just a bus going by, a car? Because everything generates electromagnetic field. You can walk with those. Like, there's one of these tours downtown or wherever where you get the EMF and everybody walks with them, and it's lighting up. No, you're creating electromagnetic fields as you walk. So it's very important to understand how these tools are used. I think most people just jump to a ghost. I mean, I can't tell how many tours where I get kids or whatever, and then it's like, oh my God, it lit up. It's like, yeah, because your phone's out. So yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to understand those tools. And, I could do a 2-hour lecture and train people on tools, but I'll never get to any ghost stories. So I just showed you guys very basic. I gave you like 20 years of parapsychology in 10 minutes, just so you understand the basics. But yeah, that's really what I think, is that, who's to say what that was? Could it be the ghosts of that street, or was it a bus that went by? It's okay to be skeptical in this. I definitely am one of those people that likes to be skeptical.
Well, even with my skepticism, like I said, we went to the Janis Joplin house, or she at least owned it at one point. And again, some poor teenager got murdered there in the 60s. You had another device, I forget what it's called, but it's basically, you had an iPad connect to an Xbox 360 Connect, and it's on a little rig. What do you call that?
Yeah, it's called an SLS camera.
All right. That SLS camera was projecting two stick figured shapes, and they were hanging out in the trees. Now, are those dudes always there? Is there sometimes just one? Is there sometimes four of them? Um,
No.
Again, I don't have an explanation
Sometimes
for it, but that was a thing on your screen.
sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. It just
Fascinating.
depends on the tour. I mean, I always feel bad. I'm on a tour, I use the SLS camera, nothing happens. It's just, and like I said, I don't have Scooby snacks. I cannot bring these ghosts out on command. So I just usually say a little funny line like, "Welcome to my world." Because there are times when you go out and you get nothing. It's not always a guarantee. Now, there are things called false readings. I mean, these things are trying to depict, so if you're pointing it at a tree or a building or whatever, it could falsely bring one up. And
Okay.
one of the things that you do mostly with this camera is leave it in a professional sense. Like when it's used on a case,
Hmm.
I don't walk around with the camera. I leave it in a stationary position, one position, and film it that way.
Hmm.
You get a little bit more of an increase. But if you may have remembered is how, once again, going back to that, I want you to interact with me. So if I'm seeing a figure in a tree or seeing a figure on a building, you got to interact with me. I got to say wave and say hello to me and let it wave and say hello. Dance for me, let it dance for me.
Hmm.
That's where the tools are only 50% of the game. The other 50% is how do you get the ghost to react to you, to show you that evidence, so that you can say, hey, look, this isn't a false reading. This is something that's interacting with me. I tell it say hi, it's waving hi. I tell it stand up, it stands up.
Hmm.
That is better evidence, better proof. So, we can't trust always what our eyes see. So it's exciting to see it in the camera and all
It was
that.
neat.
Say again.
I said it was neat for sure.
Yeah, it's neat. But is it paranormal? Um the
Oh,
jury's
yes.
out on that.
No, no. Paranormal is more than normal. Like this, I don't believe that was just some graphic on your screen. Like something was there. Um,
Yeah. And I
and
remember,
the couple that was using it, they were being pretty good about arms locked. So that was
yes.
a again. Is it? There's never more than two of those things on that street.
Well, it is, the camera itself is used to catch two players, two people, usually two people.
Oh, oh,
Okay.
okay. I'm a
So
PlayStation guy, not an Xbox guy. So
yeah, well, I'm neither, to be honest with you. I just love the camera because it's more than a camera, it's a projector of infrared. I mean, we
word.
talked about why we believe it works, like the
Mhm.
Xbox Cam, it's more than a camera, it reflects,
Mhm.
it projects a infrared at you.
Okay.
Probably goes about 8 to 10 feet. And then that
Okay.
infrared that's projected on you is how the software is able to recognize you and then map you as a stick figure so that when you move in the game it knows how to move. It's like almost like like sometimes when you look at it in infrared it almost looks like a bunch of dots,
Yes.
and then you sort of, it maps you from the map of the dots. So the theory is some of us believe that maybe the spirit world lives in the infrared spectrum. It's why we don't see them, and that's why we get full spectrum cameras or infrared cameras, because sometimes, and that's why a lot of times maybe a ghost appears white. Oh, the woman in white, the ghost was white. Well, if it's infrared and we're seeing it, it's reversed, so in this case, it would have projected out, caught something, and then mapped it. And I do remember the tour. I remember it did do some interactions with people too.
Hmm. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't just stagnant. They stayed very still with the camera and it was moving for them.
Hmm.
And, to project something on a building and it to move, that's a horse of a different color, because it is mapping movement. So if something's moving there, what that is, we don't know. the belief is maybe it's a spirit in the spirit world. You know, it's an interesting camera. When it first was invented, it was quite expensive, like $2,000. And I used to be very jealous of ghost hunters that had them. But
Sure.
I'm a cheapskate ghost hunter, and I hacked it for $50. And, I hacked it. That's why mine looks sort of like, duct tape, and it's not the fanciest of machines, but I don't feel like you need to spend $2,000 to ghost hunt. I mean, I really want to inspire people to do this. And, yes, it can be very expensive, but there is cheaper ways to do this stuff, and I'm about teaching people cheaper ways of doing stuff.
Tommy, I have a whole sheet of questions here that I still want to talk to you about here, but we need to wrap this up. I hope I can have you back on the show again in a future date.
Yeah. Might be great to have both Annalisa and I on.
I would also love to talk to Annalisa. Let's get numbers connected after the show here. Yeah, man, we still haven't talked about, like, I had a mild experience on your tour. We can talk about that another time, but it happened and it affected me, and that's why I wanted to have you on this show here. But dude, I sincerely appreciate you being a part of this. Again, I want to talk to you more about, like, movies and this and that, and there seem to be certain patterns, but not everything is certain. And anyways, folks, again, the Haunted Hate walking tour, it's less than $25. However, it's less than 2 hours, but I dress warm and come accordingly. You can get tickets at hauntedhate.com. Also, if you have a paranormal experience going on in your spot right now, the sfghostsociety.org will take care of you, or at least check it out. Tommy, is there anything else I'm missing?
No, you got it all, and I look forward to talking to you again and, talking about your personal experiences. And
folks, I do other stuff around here. You can find movie reviews and the actual video podcast. It's the Waffle Box, the original Waffle Box. It's the People's Podcast. It is the best part of Wednesdays because you accept no substitutions. You can find it here on the bosnet.family and youtube.com Waffle Box Pod. Anyways, for Tommy Netzband, I've been Kush Hayes. You've been you.
Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
From the Bosnet family.
All right, Frank, time to go.